Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. Gonna do the Proof tracksuit today. It's the weekend, let's get into it. I heard from a few of you in the comments that the audio has not been so good lately, so hopefully it's better today. I pass that on to the editors. We're working on it. We care. We want the audio to be good. Let's get right into it though. Gonna talk a bunch about some art today, a little bit about ReWorld that launched yesterday, bunch of big sales. Let's go. Starting with a quick market overview. Volumes were down again. If you look at market share, it's a little bit less than 70% with Blur. That's a little bit lower than normal, but still very much in Blur's camp. In terms of unique buyers, they were down a touch, had that big up move yesterday, kind of reverted a bit today. In terms of flip returns, I said yesterday flip returns were down. They were up today, okay? And there's one reason that they were up, and I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with Box of Nemos. Thank you, Midjourney. Love that. Nakamigos, 318 ETH from Nakamigo flippers, had a big rally. I'll show you that chart in a second. In terms of the large cap index, it was down, kind of retesting 1 year lows on the large cap index, at least in ETH terms, less so in US dollar terms. What were the different components? Quotas were up a bit. World of Women and Bored Ape Yacht Club. Bored Ape Yacht Club tends to matter the most for this index, and that was down about 2%. Mid cap index was down about 3%. Most of that weakness was in VV checks, Quirkies, and Kumpai Pandas. Let's look at Nakamigos. This wasn't an all-time high, but based on the one, I check this chart every day. So based on my daily closes, it just closed, the floor price closed at an all-time high last I checked. What was driving it? And Wagmi-san, 10 KTF shop, you can see that they tweeted out a picture saying, wanted dead or alive, this Nakamigo. There are 20,000 Nakamigos, but I wouldn't have found it for you. Put it as the icon on that image. But who knows what this is? I mean, Wagmi-san, 10 KTF, that's connected to Yuga. That's connected to Beeple. There are big people involved. So the idea of this happening, I think it does kind of creates more mystery, more intrigue, and that is the oxygen of NFTs. That's what creates FOMO, and there you have it. Nice little rally. In terms of art projects, 4 projects did 10 ETH of volume or more. Let's look at a few of the biggest sales. The first is this Chromie Squiggle. It was a fuzzy, sold for 16 ETH. That's a little bit higher than recent fuzzy sales, so nice to see that. A Claire Silver Genesis sold for 13.33 ETH in the upper right. You had an Archetype, which sold for 12 ETH in the lower left, and his Memories of Qilin for 4.2. The floor on Memories of Qilin is 5 ETH, so a little bit below the floor for that sale. Second thing to talk about, Proof announces Evolving Pixels. We actually already announced it. What happened here was that Proof kind of gave more details on it, talked about the mint. Here's the tweet from Proof. This is a project that Emily Shi of Memories of Qilin curated. A bit of the details here. This is actually going to be an 858 NFT project with a 0.2 ETH mint price for anybody who owns a Moonbird or is a member of Proof Collective. If there are NFTs left over, it will go to 0.25 ETH for the public. All the projects that are being minted are long-form generative and AI. Okay, so each one of them is unique. None of these are editions from 10 different artists. Emily said that this project is focused on the theme of growth, from literal interpretations of botanical growth to abstract explorations of personal growth. That's kind of the theme underlying all the art. And when you mint one, you're just going to get a random selection. So you don't know which artist you are going to get. And I think that's kind of an interesting way of doing it. It kind of equalizes all the artists together. And it should be pretty interesting. I had to look at some of the outputs. If you go to the website, go to that Proof tweet, they'll give you some of the outputs from each of the artists. And a lot of this stuff just looks really, really cool. Here are all the artists involved. Dean Black, Corey Haber, and Tangled Others, Helena Smith, who's Neural Bricolage. Just a lot of cool art. Check it out. I think this is going to be a really fun mint. Excited for that to happen. I got two Moonbirds, so I'll be minting 2. Let's see how it goes. Third thing to talk about, ReWorld Launches. And I wanted to talk about this because I talked about the passes, the fellowship passes that kind of gave people a right or the opportunity to mint one of these. ReWorld, for those who don't remember, is Rope Renisto's second project. Rope Renisto very famously came out with Life in West America, and then 3 months later, he's minting this next one called ReWorld. Here you can see him celebrating and thanking the buyers that it minted out, I believe, at a 2.34 ETH mint price. We'll get to that in a second. Here's the Life in West America artist. There are 500 pieces in Life in West America. You can see the floor for that project is 4.75, bids at 3.65 right now. Here are all the images. So as they were being minted out in the ReWorld project. So Life in West America is the first one. As the second one was being minted out, they showed these images in these thumbnails. Pretty cool how they all look together. Here is a bunch of the art, a bunch of kind of city scenes, some alcoholic beverage scenes, a bunch of American flags, some cowboys, a bunch of different topics in it. Back to the details, 500. It ended up minting out at 2.34 ETH, raised $2.2 million for fellowship as well as for Rope. Not sure how that broke down. And the floor price is now about 1.7 ETH. So, what we saw was that it minted out, and I think pretty much from the start, the floor really went down a fair bit. So I'd say this was kind of a bit of a failed mint. It was successful in that it did sell out, but a bit of a failed mint in that it didn't really work out, at least thus far, for collectors. Wanted to dig a bit more into that. You can see that pink line is where it minted, and there's just been a ton of volume below the mint price. A lot of people accepting WETH bids. I think the other thing that's happened here is that Life in West America, since this was announced, has actually gone down a fair bit. And I think I'll get into what I think kind of went wrong here, where maybe some of that disconnect was. Again, it's still too early to say, but I do think, you always want those mint prices to go higher. So just want to dig a little bit into what maybe are some signals here that we can look for in the future. Now, I think some of the things that didn't really work too well are one is that the artists looked extremely similar to Life in West America. You had two 500-piece sets, which were both very, very similar. And I think the other thing is that it happened less than 3 months after the prior launch. And I think on top of that is that the buyers of Life in West America, when they first got into Life in West America, didn't realize that ReWorld was coming later. That would be so similar. I think the other thing that happened here is that most of the people who wanted to get into this did so by buying the pass. And I think when we're thinking about mints, we always have to think, where is the incremental buyer versus the incremental seller? And I think the incremental buyer kind of already bought the pass, got to buy it. So there weren't that many new people who, once it came out, were like, oh, this is amazing and new, because it wasn't that new relative to the prior one versus the incremental seller. 37% are listed. I think a lot of people came in thinking, wow, Life in West America, certainly I thought it, that floor is at 4.5. This is going to go about 2 ETH. Like this, so this will be a decent money-making opportunity. But then at the end of the day, there weren't people there to buy it for a higher price. Always have to think about the market, think about your price point, think about, is there FOMO potential? If there's no FOMO potential after the mint, it's going to be hard for the price to rally. And then also thinking about what the floor means. Life in West America has a 4.6 ETH floor, but it doesn't have much volume there. So does that mean that 1,000 new people are going to want to buy this one at a price like that? Clearly, that's not really the case. I think an example of an artist who has done multiple releases really well, is Matt DeLaurier. And I think one of the things that he's done, he obviously did Subscapes and then he also did Meridians, but they look so different. These were conceptually such different projects that someone who owns Subscapes would probably say, oh, I want to go collect Meridians because they're so different. I want, and kind of gives more of a collector vibe than in this case where you had very similar outputs across them. I mean, there were differences, but the outputs broadly had a very similar look and feel. Now, the next thing to talk about is that people who have those fellowship passes or don't have those fellowship passes, there's another mint today of a bunch of other awesome AI artists. I think this might have a bit more FOMO potential because it is a 0.1 ETH mint for people who have the passes. It is some new art, really novel stuff from a bunch of great artists. We'll see. I mean, I never know how the market's going to react, but maybe there'll be a little bit more here. The way it's going to work, there are 1,000 pieces. Holders of the passes can mint for 0.1 ETH for a half hour. Next people can do it for 0.2 ETH. And again, multiple artists doing a very similar post photography. Here are a few examples of them. This is an artist named Simon Rand. These are 4 of the pieces in his. Kate Morris, here are 4 of the pieces in hers. And then Charlie Engman, 4 pieces in his. So I don't know, I think this could be an interesting follow on. And, when you're minting at 0.1 ETH, 0.2 ETH, much lower risk there for collectors. Last thing to talk about. Let's talk about notable sales. And we're going to talk about a lot of notable sales, but a bit more in the PFP than normal today. First, there were 2 CryptoPunk hoodie sales at 238 and 220 ETH. We've talked about hoodies extensively. Not going to go too deep into that. The last one that we saw was at 180, so a nice little bump up from that. There were 2 DeGods sales. These were the highest 2 DeGods sales that have happened on ETH yet. One for 18 ETH, a very clean one, and one for 19.6 ETH. I think that third eye situation is what makes us want to grow. I'm not too deep into DeGod traits, but that's my sense there. 2 MFer sales, one for 18 ETH, one for 13.25. The 18 was an ape. The 13.25 was a zombie. Love to see that. I think these are just kind of fun, kind of derivatives of punks. I always like to see those. Here you have an artifact, Otherdeed. And this Otherdeed sold for 101 ETH. The reason it was expensive is because those artifacts are extremely rare. This portal piece artifact, I think there are only 6, 7, or 8, something like that in the entire collection out of 100,000. If we look at the last 3 portal piece artifact sales, they were at 95, 80, and 43. So this at a 101 each sale is an all-time high. Pretty awesome. Can't complain in this market where things are kind of hitting lows. So congrats there. This was a wild sale, and I'm not going to take you through all of it. I'm just going to give you a sense of what happened. It was Dingaling and Sigh Duck, or Duck Sigh Duck, something like that. And they traded 4 apes. Dingaling gave 4 apes along with 22 ETH. And in exchange for that, he got a full crew of captains, potatoes, and You Are the Real MVP, as well as a Grail Medusa DeGod. Now, Meme Lad is just on fire. I think people think that the meme token could be worth something and wanting to get their exposure. If you have 27 potatoes, 9 captains, and 1 MVP, that together has some good things in their world of staking or whatever they do. So maybe that's a little bit helpful, but interesting sale. Dingaling, clearly, one of the biggest ape holders, if not the biggest ape holder, someone who's early often and obviously not early right now to the meme land ecosystem, but making a bet here, always interesting to see that. And then last thing, let's talk about art. Let's talk about an artist. I'm going to focus on one artist today, one big sale that happened on Super Rare. This piece is called Crypto Duomo by Caravaggio and Ängelía. Man, so many different languages I got to pronounce names in. And Ängelía, something like that. 6.8 ETH. They work together. This is a pretty cool piece. I looked at the definition of it. It was Crypto Duomo, or the description. It is a secret place solely built for the sake of the arts, science, glitch studies, and non-degenerate moves. That was the idea behind the piece. Pretty cool. I looked at Caravaggio, and it was on Caravaggio's Super Rare page. Other sales that Caravaggio's had, 32.5 ETH, 20, 16 ETH. So some really big sales for this artist. Again, we've talked about this a lot. A piece selling at 6 ETH for someone who's been selling in the 20s, that's just not uncommon right now. PFPs are down, art blocks are down, and we're seeing it also in the one-on-one space. A bit about the artist. The artist, in their bio, they claim Italian, Brazilian, individual artist, analog photographer, and art director. My art is when the old meets the new. It is a mixture of the ideas of Renaissance mirrored in our current days. And looking at the website, you have this scene with the VR glasses on everybody. I think it's a nice, interesting representation of what that artist was describing. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you have a great weekend. We will be back. I think we'll be back on Tuesday. I think on Monday, I'm going to be flying. It's Easter on Sunday. I think we might take Monday off. If not, you get a bonus episode, but we'll be back soon. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you very shortly.